class of Jefferson Presidential. I named the distillery McLean and Kind Distillery, which I started back in 1997. It was my dad and I for about a year. And we got into the business trying to do something a little bit different. We got into the business after I found out about a great line of bourbon that was available due to some consolidation in the industry. At the time, there was very little of the high-end, small batch, single barrel bourbons that were out there. There wasn't much of a market, but I thought that there was room for better bourbons to come to the forefront. So I created Jefferson's Reserve. It was a straight 15-year-old rye-based bourbon. Came out, did pretty well. First couple years, we entered into about 30 states and kind of plumbed along, doing great work with just that one product, which was absolutely beautiful. Since that time, I discovered a lot of these smaller, aged, kind of esoteric lots of bourbon that would not have been used, bottled up on their own, but blended into a regular, larger brand. So some of these great, almost forgotten aged bourbons were sitting around in different warehouses, and sometimes they would be available for sale, sometimes they wouldn't. Where we are right now with bourbon, the bourbon industry has really exploded, which has caused a real shortage of supply. Because I've been working with these guys for the last 15 years, I'm able to peel away some of their better products now and again that it's too small for the big guys to do something specifically with themselves. However, they'll sell it to me, and then I will take 3 or 4 different recipes, different ages, and blend them together to try to pack in as much flavor and get as much balance as I can to create a somewhat consistent product. About 50% of each of our products, other than the Presidential Select, we will have one kind of baseline product in there. We'll try to hit those same notes and flavor tones, but we'll do it with different aged products and different recipes, basically. So it's more of a blending exercise now than when we originally started. Bourbon has come together and is actually a series of 6 different laws that protect the integrity of what the category is. And each of those 6 laws make it more expensive to produce bourbon whiskey than any other type of whiskey. Recalled bourbon has to age for at least 2 years in new charred white oak barrels. I buy a new barrel for about $150 a barrel, sell a used one for about $50 a barrel. So I sell that in Scotland for Scotch, Ireland for Irish whiskeys, all over the world for rums. Anything that's dark, for the most part, has been aged in used bourbon barrels. And because of that, you're getting more flavors right away. Also, where we age it, how we age it. In Kentucky, which I live in Kentucky, it's the worst weather in the world for anything except for aging bourbons, because you get extreme colds in the winter, extreme heat in the summer. As it's hot and cold, the bourbon expands and contrasts in the barrel. As it's doing that, it's working throughout the wood and picking up all the flavors. So that's what gives it its depth, its color. We call it the heart and soul bourbon comes from. It's also, it evaporates out because of the humidity in Kentucky. So we lose about 7% the first year and 3 to 4% every year after. It's a very small yield. So that's why you don't see new bourbon distilleries popping up, even though there's been certainly a kind of a glorification of bourbon. It's very expensive. One, you've got to buy new barrels each time you're putting out a barrel. You've got to age it for a minimum of really 4 years, and for anything interesting, you're going to age it longer than that. So you've got that big investment of capital up front, and then you're not looking for a return until years down the road. My goal at the time is to expose people to what better bourbons are all about. It really wasn't 15-year-old really good bourbon out there. People weren't drinking bourbons like we are right now. They weren't drinking bourbons neat. And that's because there was very little exposure to it. The bourbon industry, up to that point, had not done a very good job of marketing itself and showcasing the better products that they can develop. What happened, there was a decline in the bourbon market. And with the decline, instead of trying to showcase how great a product can be, there was this mountain, glut of bourbon, so people just started slashing prices. You can consumers saw slash prices, we thought, cheap product, yeah, there's nothing to it. We've come a long way specifically in the last few years. We've grown at least 30% each of the last 3 years. We've got 4 expressions of bourbon and rye right now. Jefferson's Reserve, Jefferson's Presidential Select, just came out with Jefferson's Rye. We're about to launch something that I call Jefferson's Ocean Bourbon, where I put some barrels on a friend of mine's ship. They traveled 10,000 nautical miles in and out of the Panama Canal for over 6 times. The bourbon is 4 years old, and it is about twice as dark as this 18-year-old. Really just baked in the heat and the constant movement on the ship. Had it just lots of contact with the wood. It was so expressive and so big for something that young. It was a great experiment that I want to kind of take it to more of the next level, that we can do it on a broader scale. Probably the beginning of August, we're going to come out with a collaboration with a chef. He and I have been working on to hit specific flavor profiles. Again, utilizing our blending process. We have 3 or 4 different recipes in here. And we're going to try to hit specific taste, flavoring combinations. That to take it 10 years from now, my goal is to make it a worldwide acknowledged brand that has brand identity. People think of Jefferson's, they think of the highest quality, perfectly balanced. And I was just in France a few weeks ago. Walked into a couple places, was able to order at Jefferson's, and it's a lot of fun. Breakfast would have to be Eggs Benedict. Lots of bacon, lots of fruit to go along with it. And then if you're going to have, well, that, why not a couple mimosas with it. Maybe for lunch, prosciutto and melon, some ribs. It was just at Dreamland Barbecue in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. If I could have those ribs again with a something. I typically drink bourbon just like this, neat, maybe on the rocks. But I started putting bourbon into Arnold Palmer's dinner. Gosh, I love seafood. We were just talking. I just got back from Costa Rica. Octopus, ceviche, any type. I love mussels. Everywhere I go, I have mussels. I've got a little rating chart. And I tell you what, while I was down there, we caught some groupers, brought them right to the restaurant. They cooked them up. They blackened, grilled, and fried grouper, and had mango sauce and butter sauce. It's absolutely delicious. One is that quest to make this a globally recognized, aspired to brand. There's a lot of things that I enjoy outside of work and bourbon, but it's great that this is such a big part of my life that I can incorporate that into my life. From travel to sporting, anything that I do, and we somehow bring bourbon into it.